Hello everybody, my name is Arush Shangari and this is part 2 of this Python tutorial. In part 1 we discussed about print statements and variables. And in part 2 we're gonna dive deeper into the basics of Python. So in the last video, in part 1, we discussed about print statements and variables. The print does exactly what it sounds like. It just simply prints text into the screen, and whatever's inside the quotation marks is printed on the output. And also in variables, basically to define a variable, you must use the name of the variable first, followed by an equal sign, and then you put the value of the variable after the equal sign. So for instance, if you want to define a variable C equals 15. Then C is the variable and 15 is the value for C. And this equal sign is necessary in between to show that C represents 15. So if you want to print C, then it will just print the value C, which is 15. And you can call it anywhere in the code. So it'll work anywhere as long as you call the variable. If you define B equals 15, but you accidentally put capital B, it will show an error about that the variable is not defined. So name B is not defined. So that's about variables, and we talked a bit about operators, a sneak peek. So what we discussed was that any operation can work. So let's say you define a variable 5 and b equals 6. Then if you want to print a plus b, then it'll print 11, just like a calculator. And that's just a tiny bit of what we'll discuss about operators. Operators, there's 7 different operators, but in this tutorial, we're only going to discuss 2, arithmetic operators and comparison operators. Those 2 I feel like are the most important ones and will be used the most. And keep in mind, print statements and variables will come in handy a lot. Even outside of this course, it'll come in handy a lot. Print statements and variables are very important and they will need to be learned first. So now let's just talk about operators. So now we're going to be discussing operators, arithmetic operators, and comparison operators. So I've opened a doc of explaining the different operators for both comparison and arithmetic. So arithmetic operators perform mathematical operations, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and exponential functions on the operands, or on the values. It could be variables, it could be 2 different integers. So basically, just any mathematical operation. So basically, in this example, n1 plus n2 equals 6. So basically, n1 is a variable and n2 is a variable. And basically, let's say n1 is 2 and n2 is 4. If you print n1 plus n2, that's going to equal to 6. So let's start here. So first we're going to discuss arithmetic operators. Let's say we want to create a variable n1. And in the structure of a variable, there must be a character first. There cannot be any spaces. There must be a letter or an underscore. So if n1 is equal to 5 and n2 equals to 6. And you can name it anything you want. So if you print n1 plus n2, then it will show 11. Or you can define another variable that states result equals, and then remove these quotations. I mean, you don't have to, but it's better to remove them to make the program neater. But it's not going to show an error or anything. So if we result equals n1 plus n2, if we run it, it won't actually print anything. It's just going to print empty, nothing. So basically, we actually have to print result. We can't just define a variable result. You have to call that variable. Because the purpose of the variable is the process behind it. The process is you add those two together, 5 and 6, using n1 plus n2. So then you have to print result. And then it'll print 11. So now the next arithmetic operator is subtraction. So subtraction n1 minus n2, we can keep the variables. Nothing will happen. That'll say -1. And so if it's 4 and 2, it can also work for positive. So then the difference is 2. So the next one is going to be multiplication. So for multiplication, it's actually a bit different. Instead of an X, you have to use Shift 8. This is for a Chromebook, but Shift 8 is basically the star symbol. And if I want to print result, 4 times 2 is 8. So it's going to print the result 8. So basically, the next operator we're going to use is division. So division is basically the slash, and result equals n1 slash n2. We can rename the variables if you want to A. To make it more simpler, we can name it to A and B. So now you can just use you can name it anything you want. But then you have to change those, otherwise it'll show an error that n1 and n2 aren't defined. And the thing is that you have to do exactly how the variable was defined. So result equals A divided by B. So print result, it should print out 2, because 4 divided by 2 is 2. And let me run it again. And it prints out 2.0, which is basically 2. And that is in float formation, or float. And basically, float is basically decimal numbers. So let's say instead of 2, it's like 2.4. Like that's basically the decimal number. And when you divide things, the decimal will, like if you do 5 divided by 2, that will be 2.5. And so basically, these are the data types in Python, the very basic data types. And an integer is basically 3, 4, and 5. Float is a fractional number, which is 3.25, for example, 3.25907. Any fractional number that when you divide things like 3.14 could be a number, like anything in decimal. And then string is a sequence of characters. It can be both letters and integers combined, a set of letters and or numbers, and a Boolean value is a true-false value. And this will come in handy when we talk about comparison operators after arithmetical. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. And now let's get back into arithmetic operators. So basically, now that it prints 2.0, the next arithmetic operator is the modulus operator, and basically it just takes the remainder when dividing two things. So basically the symbol for this is the percentage. So if you do result equals A shift 5, which is a percentage, then result, then it should print 0 because 4 divided by 2 is the integer 2. So if we want to do 5 or 6, or 5, then it will show the remainder 1 because 5 divided by 2 goes into 5 twice. And then there's a remainder of 5 because 2 times 2 is 4 and then 5 minus 4 is 1. So it should give remainder 1. And that's just an additional arithmetic operator. But the four main are probably going to be multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Those are the ones that are most commonly used. But these can also come in handy too. So the next one is exponents. So a to the power of b. And let's say a is like 7 and b is 2 or 3. Let's say 3. Then we'll just print 7 to the power of 3. Let's just change that to 2. So 7 to the power of 2 is obviously 49. So it's just storing that value 49 equals to 7 squared, and basically print result in that it's storing that value 49. So then it's going to print 49. So those are the 6 arithmetic operators. And now let's get started on comparison operators. So this also involves print statements. Not also, but it involves print statements. So comparison operator is used to compare 2 or more operands. Python supports the following comparison operators. So it's gonna, let me control shift plus to zoom in. Now, so then let's say we define 2 variables, n1 and n2. n1 is 10 and n2 is 5. So then, equals equals. So this is not 1 equal sign, this is 2 equal sign. And basically when you're comparing, it might be a bit different. So when you're defining a variable, you use 1 equal sign, but when you're comparing two things that you're trying to prove it's equal, then you use 2. So let's say n1 is 10 and n2 is 5. Let's say you want to see if both of them are equal. So you'll use print in brackets or in parentheses. You will put basically the 2 variables and showing both equal signs. So let's put this. So now let's say we want to. So a equals 5 and b equals 6. And now print a, not 1, but 2 equals to b. So when you're trying to compare 2 variables, 2 or more variables, in this case it's just two variables, then it will compare a and b. So this comes in handy because you're comparing variables. Instead of printing them and instead of adding 2 variables, now we're comparing 2 variables. So those are just operators in general. And a equals b, it will return false. So in a Boolean value, it's either going to return true or false depending on the statement. So the next operator we're going to be using is the greater than sign operator. So greater than will basically show if a is greater than b. So basically, if now it's going to return false again because 5 is obviously not greater than 6. So let's put this in order. Print a equals to b. So then it's going to print false twice in a row. Okay, so the next symbol is the not equals to. And it's basically an exclamation mark followed by an equal sign. And now, if a is exclamation mark shift 1 on a Chromebook equals to b. So that exclamation mark is automatically not. And this comes in handy when if statements and several other things in Python, aspects in Python. So that symbol right there is not, and that's a new symbol, so that is very important also. So a is not equal to b. So 5 is not equal to 6. And that makes sense. So that is going to return true. So false, false, true. Okay, the next one is going to be the less than. So print a is less than b. I'm going to add the spaces to make it more organized. And that should return true also because a and b, so basically 6 is greater than 5, which does make sense. So false, false, true, true. And the next is going to be greater than equal to. So print A is greater than equal to. So it's a greater than sign followed by an equal sign to B. And basically what this greater than equal than sign means is that if A is greater than B, it will still, let's say A is greater than B, it will return true. If A is equal to B, it will also return true. So even if it's not greater than B, there is a possibility it's equal to B. So it can either be greater than B or equal to B. But if it's both, or if it's one of them, any one of them, it will still return true. So let's say A is 5 and B is 5. It's going to return true because 5 is greater than equal to 5, right? So basically that will return false because A is neither greater or equal to B. So false, false, true, true, false. And now the last one is less than equal to. So A is less than equal to B. Well, is 5 less than or equal to 6? Well, that is a true statement. So it's going to return false, false, true, true, false, true. So that is arithmetic operators and comparison operators. And now we're going to take a sneak peek into if conditions. So basically, if conditions are used to select the certain code block that you want to execute based upon certain conditions. So based on certain conditions, it'll do certain things. So basically, the four types of conditional statements are if statements, if else statements, if elif statements, and nested if else statements. And basically, the first one is if statements. If statements is the simplest type of conditional statement. Just upon a certain condition, it'll do just a certain thing. So let's say we wanted to find a variable age equals 65. And now, so if age, so you must start with if, and then age, which is the variable. After the if part, you must add the variable. If age is, let's just say greater than. And in conditional statements, operators also play a key role. So basically, after age, we'll need an operator. So we can use a greater than symbol. So if age is greater than 60, and then colon. This colon is very important, and it will automatically indent. Without the colon, there'll be a bunch of syntax errors. And then after you put if age is 60, then you can just put anything like print that you so you can print anything. So you are over 60 years old. And you can put anything into the print statement. I'm just putting that there. So if we run it, it should print that you are over 60 years old because 65, because we're plugging age as 65. Age represents 65. So you can just say that if 65 is greater than 60, you're over 60 years old. But if you don't do the indentation, if you don't indent, then it will show an error. And how to get back is tab. So then tab, and then it'll bring you back here. So then, now that's just a sneak peek into if statements. We'll cover if else, which is an alternative path if that condition returns false. So basically, let's say if it's 59, which is not greater than 60, it wouldn't print anything. And that is a very big problem. So that's where we'll need an else, which is an alternative path if that condition is returned false. And here, the condition is returned false. Before, it was returned true, but now 59 is not greater than 60. So that